This Notebook LM video explores how the concept of heresy evolved from a simple act of choice into one of history's most powerful instruments of control. Leaders and institutions used it to silence rivals, enforce conformity, and confiscate wealth. Special inquisitorial courts, censorship of books, and economic confiscations institutionalized heresy as a crime.
You hear the word heresy, and what comes to mind? Probably dusty old books, maybe some medieval trials, right? It just feels ancient. But what if I told you this old idea is actually all about something incredibly modern? It's about the power of your choices and, well, the systems that are built to control them. So, here's what we're going to do. First, we'll look at how heresy started out as just a simple choice. Then, we'll see how it got twisted into a weapon of power. We'll even meet some of the people who were called out for their beliefs. And finally, we'll bring it all home and see how these exact same dynamics are playing out right now in our digital world. All right, first up, the power of choice. To really get this, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning, back to what this word actually meant before it got so loaded. This is what's so wild. The word heresy comes from this Greek word heresis, and you know what it means? It just means choice. That's it. So originally, it wasn't about being wrong or evil or anything like that. It was just about the act of choosing a belief for yourself, instead of just, passively accepting whatever you were told. And right there, you've got this fundamental clash. On one side, you have orthodoxy. That's the correct belief, the stuff everyone in the group is supposed to agree on. It's the status quo. But then, on the other side, you have heresy. And that's the individual's choice to say, you know what, I see it differently. It's basically the community versus your own conscience. Okay, so this is where things get complicated and a lot darker. Because that simple personal act of choosing a belief, it got systematically turned into a political crime. It went from being about your conscience to being about control. And this quote really nails why it was so threatening. The heretic is a deviant insider. Think about that. A heretic wasn't some stranger from a faraway land. Nope, they were one of you. They were part of the community, challenging it from the inside. And that, for the people in power, is way more dangerous. So you gotta understand, accusations of heresy were rarely just about theology. It became this incredibly powerful political tool. If you were a king or a bishop and you wanted to shut down dissent, get rid of a rival, or just make sure everyone towed the line, well, calling them a heretic was the perfect way to do it. And this wasn't just random. They built entire systems to make this work. Think about it. The courts? They set up special inquisitorial courts that had their own rules, giving them huge legal power. The economy? Oh yeah, they could just confiscate all your property, which was a nice little windfall for the state. And knowledge? They controlled that too, by censoring books and deciding what ideas were safe and which ones were, well, heretical. And if you want to see just how destructive this kind of system can be, look no further than the Spanish Inquisition. I mean, it's notorious for a reason. And what's really shocking is that modern research shows the damage it caused wasn't just temporary. It left deep scars that you can still see, even today. First, let's talk money. It's pretty staggering. Studies have found that in the parts of Spain where the Inquisition was most active, the average incomes today are still measurably lower. That's right, the persecution literally put the brakes on economic growth for centuries. And it's not just about money, it's about knowledge. Those exact same regions also show lower levels of education even now. It makes sense, right? When you spend centuries punishing new ideas and free thinking, you create this educational hole that takes generations and generations to climb out of. But this last one, this might be the most chilling part, the social damage. See, the Inquisition worked by encouraging people to snitch on their neighbors, their friends, even their family. It completely tore apart the fabric of society. And researchers have found that this deep-seated mistrust, it's still there. It's a measurable lack of social trust in those communities, hundreds of years later. But heresy isn't just about big systems and depressing data. It's ultimately a story about people. Real individuals and groups who looked at the world, saw something different, and had the courage to say it out loud, often knowing it could cost them everything. And this timeline, man, it just scratches the surface. You had the Cathars back in the 12th century, this whole spiritual movement in France that basically said, we don't buy the official church's version. They were declared heretics, and an entire crusade was launched to just wipe them out. Brutal. And you get guys like John Wycliffe, whose heretical idea was that regular people should be able to read the Bible in their own language. Imagine that. And of course, there's the famous one, Galileo, put on trial by the Inquisition in 1633. His crime? The heresy of saying the earth revolves around the sun. So you see, it didn't matter if your challenge was spiritual, political, or scientific. If it went against the orthodoxy, it could be crushed. So that brings us right up to today. I mean, the world is obviously a very different place. But have these basic dynamics, this clash between orthodoxy and heresy, have they really gone away? Or have they just put on a new set of clothes? So let's just ask it straight up. Is heresy just a thing of the past? Is it just history? And I think if we're being honest, the answer is absolutely not. You can see these patterns everywhere once you know what to look for. Think about the online world, the heresy-hunting that can lead to digital mobs trying to get someone deplatformed. Or think about actual blasphemy laws that are still on the books in some countries today. We even see it in the way we sometimes label groups that are outside the mainstream as cults. And it goes both ways. The internet also lets ideas that the mainstream considers heretical, like conspiracy theories, thrive in their own little bubbles. The very algorithms that show us content can lock us into our own orthodoxies, making any outside idea feel like a threat. The parallel is actually pretty striking when you lay it out. Back then, the ultimate consequence for a heretic who wouldn't back down was physical death, burning at the stake. What's the modern version? Well, for some, it's a kind of social and digital death, getting exiled from the online platforms, the communities, maybe even the careers that make up a person's life. The weapons are different, but that impulse to cast out the deviant insider, that's still very much with us. And all of this leaves us with a really big, really important question for our time. In a world that feels more polarized than ever, where every group seems to have its own strict set of beliefs, who gets to draw that line? Who decides what's acceptable orthodoxy and what's punishable heresy today? Who are the new inquisitors? And what's really at stake?